Hi, this is John Boyne. I'm the author of the novel The House of Special Purpose, and this is a section from a chapter in that novel called The Prince of Mogilev. For weeks after I arrived in St. Petersburg, I found my thoughts drifting back to Kashin, to the family I had left behind and the friend whose death weighed heavy on my conscience. At nights, lying on my thin bunk, Kolek's face appeared before me, his eyes bulging from his head, his throat bruised and scarred from the ropes. I imagined his terror as the guards led him towards the trees where the noose had been hung. For all his bravado, I could not imagine that he went to his death with anything other than fear in his heart and regret for the decades not lived. I prayed that he did not blame me too much. Regardless, it could scarcely compare with how much I blamed myself. And when I was not thinking of Kolek, it was my family who dominated my thoughts, particularly my sister Asha, who would have given anything to be living where I was now. Indeed, it was Asha who I was thinking of late one afternoon when I first encountered the great reading room of the Winter Palace. The doors were opened and I turned, intending to leave, but an instinct made me change my mind and I stepped inside, where I found myself alone in the serenity of a library for the first time in my life. 3 walls were filled from floor to ceiling with books, and a ladder was attached to each rail so that the browser could push himself across the floor. In the centre stood a heavy oak table on which were placed 2 large volumes, open to a series of maps. Great leather armchairs were situated at different points in the room, and I imagined myself sitting there for an afternoon, lost in reading. I had never read a book in my entire life, of course, but they called to me. A whisper from the constant bindings, and I reached for one after the other, scanning the title pages, reading opening paragraphs as well as I could, placing my discarded volumes on the table behind me without a thought. So lost was I in my examination that I failed to hear the door open behind me, and only as the heavy boots marched across the floor did I blink back into the moment and realize that I was not alone. I turned, throwing the book that I was holding in the air in surprise. It fell to the floor, crashing open at my feet, the noise echoing across the walls, while I dropped to my knees and bowed my head in the presence of the Anointed One. "Your Majesty," I said, not daring to look up. "Your Majesty, I must offer my sincere apologies. I was lost, you see, and—" "Stand up, Georgi Danilovich," said the Tsar.